It was a bright Saturday morning, the kind of day when the city felt unusually calm. The sun filtered through the tall glass windows of the downtown Park Cafe, and the rhythmic hum of traffic faded behind the laughter of children playing nearby. Among them was little Lily Bennett, a 4-year-old bundle of curiosity with a head full of curls and a heart that melted anyone who crossed her path. Her father, Richard Bennett, CEO of Bennett Innovations, a name that commanded respect in every corporate circle, was sitting on a nearby bench, eyes flicking between his phone and his daughter as she ran toward the playground. He wasn't the kind of man who smiled easily. Years of boardrooms, deals, and losses had built a certain coldness around him, one that only his late wife, Emily, had been able to melt. Since her passing 2 years ago, Richard had thrown himself into work, hiding behind success to escape the ache that never really faded. But Lily, his daughter, was the only light that kept him tethered to something human. He had brought her to the park that morning as a promise kept. "No work, Daddy, just us," she'd said the night before, her little eyes pleading. So he'd turned off his notifications, locked the office out of his mind, and tried, really tried, to be present. As Lily played, he noticed a woman sitting on a wooden bench near the sandbox. She was older, perhaps in her late 50s, dressed in a faded cardigan and long skirt, her shoes worn from too many miles walked. She had a small paper cup of coffee clasped in both hands, steam curling upward into the cool morning air. There was something quietly graceful about her despite her simple appearance. Lily, being the friendly little whirlwind she was, ran straight up to her. Richard's attention sharpened. He leaned forward slightly, ready to step in if needed. "Hi," Lily chirped, her small voice full of confidence. "I like your scarf. It's pink. My mommy loved pink too." The woman looked down, startled at first, then smiled gently. "Thank you, sweetheart. Your mommy had good taste," she said softly. Her voice carried warmth, an echo of familiarity that Richard couldn't quite place even from a distance. Lily plopped herself right beside her, legs swinging. "What's your name?" "My name's Helen," the woman replied, her smile widening. "And what's yours, little one?" "Lily Bennett," she said proudly. "My daddy says I'm his best girl." Helen chuckled, though something flickered in her eyes. Pain, recognition, maybe both. "Lily Bennett," she murmured, as if the name unlocked an old memory. "You have your mother's smile." Richard frowned slightly from his bench. How could this woman possibly know Emily? He stood up slowly, curiosity replacing caution. "Do you know my mommy?" Lily asked, her small voice suddenly serious. Helen looked at the child for a long moment before answering. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered. "I used to take care of her when she was sick." Richard froze mid-step. The words hit him like a quiet thunderclap. He stopped just a few feet away, staring at the woman whose face now seemed clearer in the sunlight. Her features stirred something in his memory. Late nights in the hospital, tired eyes, a kind voice soothing Emily when he couldn't find the strength to speak. Helen turned her head then and saw him standing there. Her smile faded into something unsure. "Mr. Bennett," she said quietly, rising to her feet. "I didn't expect you," he said, cutting her off gently but firmly. "You were there, in St. Joseph's Hospital." She nodded, clutching her coffee cup tighter. "Yes, sir. I was one of the nurses assigned to your wife's ward." Richard swallowed hard, his throat tight. He remembered flashes now. Helen helping Emily through the pain, reading her stories when he'd been too consumed by meetings, sitting by her bed when he was too afraid to watch her fade away. Emily had spoken of her often. "Nurse Helen," she'd said once, smiling faintly. "She's the only one who doesn't treat me like I'm already gone." "I didn't realize," Richard began, his voice trembling slightly, "I didn't know you still lived around here." Helen gave a small, sad smile. "I don't, really. I moved after the hospital closed last year. Things got hard." She looked down at her hands. "I come to this park sometimes, though. It's peaceful. Your wife used to talk about bringing Lily here when she got better." Those words punched a hole straight through his composure. Emily had never gotten that chance. She'd passed away before she could take Lily for even one walk here. Now, 2 years later, here was Helen, the woman who'd held Emily's hand in her final days, sitting beside their daughter by pure coincidence. Lily looked up at both of them, confusion in her innocent eyes. Daddy, you know Miss Helen. Richard knelt beside his daughter, forcing a small smile. Yes, sweetheart, she helped Mommy when she was very sick. She was very kind to her. Helen's eyes glistened. Your mommy was the kindest soul I ever met, Lily. She used to talk about you every day. She said your laugh could make the world feel lighter. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The sounds of children playing and birds chirping filled the silence. Richard finally noticed how thin Helen looked, how her hands trembled slightly from the chill. Her shoes were scuffed, and the strap of her bag was frayed. It didn't take a genius to see she was struggling. He'd seen that quiet exhaustion before, in people who'd lost too much, given too much, and been forgotten for it. Are you? He hesitated, unsure how to ask without sounding patronizing. Are you doing all right, Helen? She chuckled softly, shaking her head. I'm fine, sir. Life's been unpredictable. I retired earlier than I planned. My health isn't what it used to be. But I'm getting by. Something in her tone, so calm, so accepting, made guilt bloom in Richard's chest. Here he was, a man who lived in a penthouse, whose company made millions a month, and before him stood a woman who had once cared for the love of his life, now quietly fading into poverty. Lily reached out and hugged Helen's arm, as if sensing what her father couldn't put into words. You can come play with me anytime, Miss Helen, she said with a smile so pure that even Richard's carefully guarded heart cracked open a little more. Helen's eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. Thank you, sweetheart, she whispered. You're just like your mommy. As Richard watched them, a decision formed quietly in his mind. He didn't yet know how, but he couldn't let this woman disappear again. Not after everything she had done for his wife, not after fate had brought her back to them in such a strange, gentle way. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying a faint scent of lilies, the very flowers Emily had loved most. And for the first time in a long time, Richard felt like maybe, just maybe, Emily was watching over them that morning, guiding a little girl toward the woman who had once given her mother comfort, and a man toward the part of his heart he'd forgotten how to use.